Ladies and gentle people, today is May 23rd, 2013, and this is the KNKL show. Day 50, what was it, 53? Day 53, yes, and I am your host, Kienan Lafferty. Today is Thoughtful Thursday, where we meditate beneath the lovely bonsai tree. I am Buddha, preaching to you, the lovely people, artists, and people of all kinds, and hopefully sharing some of the insights that have been going on within my tiny brain, hopefully sharing those with you and maybe inspiring you to make some changes in life. But before we get into that, I need to talk about a couple things here. One is we got about 2 weeks left on the Emma Comic Online Art Contest, so if you have not entered that, please consider submitting your piece to obtain the amazing prizes. And speaking of amazing prizes and people, I want to thank everyone who has been reading, watching, and donating their time, money, or talent to the cause of Emma and the KNKL show. Those people are featured here. If you'd like to get your name on this list, simply donate your time, money, or talent to the cause, and I will feature you here throughout the month. And the last thing I want to talk about, guys, is there are still many of these lovely posters left over. So those of you who are freaking chucking money at me needlessly, and you haven't gotten yourself one of these authentic golden stickered Emma limited prints, please consider getting one of these because they all need a home, and I want to make sure that I'm getting those out to you guys. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into what we're going to be talking about today. And I've got a few subjects that I want to talk about today. One of them being living, and this is actually stuff that I've been struggling with personally over the last few weeks, and I've been wondering why this has been happening to me. I'm wondering why I'm kind of going into this slump, right? Last week on Thoughtful Thursday, we talked about this shadowy valley of death and briar thorns and man-eating plants. And you can go into this valley, and basically it's a place of depression. It's a place of inferiority. You feel just like you're worth nothing. You're questioning the future. You don't know what's going to happen. There's so much uncertainty, and you're just not sure what to do, right? And it's a very, very easy way to naturally progress into this valley. But I want to come here today to tell you that that is not where you want to go. And there are things that you can be asking yourself to make sure that you're keeping yourself above that, right? And you're living the life that you want to live, and you're living the life that you're supposed to live. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about today is a list of 5 questions that I've decided to start asking myself whenever I'm feeling like I'm in this slump, if you will. So the first question that we're going to talk about is, are you relaxing while you work? Okay. So this is probably one of the biggest things that I've noticed over the past few weeks that I have not been doing. I talk about this constantly, and it's so funny how it's I can literally give a speech on this. I can literally give a speech on you should be relaxing while you work. While you're engaged in something creative, mental effort will always defeat itself, right? The harder you try when you are painting a picture or creating a story, the more you try and think about it, the worse it's going to come out, right? But on the other side of it, is the less you try, the more you trust in yourself and you trust in your gut, and you let your creative energies flow. You give yourself permission to flow, as some amazing people have put it. It just all seems to just come out, right? You trust in your skills that you will basically make what you envision. And if you don't the first time, then usually you'll get it the second time. And you just have to allow yourself to make that first failure, so that way you can be like, okay, this is what I have to learn. Then you go learn that thing, you come back the second time, and you do it infinitely better. And you can always improve from there. But yeah, I've caught myself over this last week just totally dreading working on certain parts of the comic, because it's oh man, I've never drawn this stuff before, or these scenes are just so hard, and all these characters are interacting with each other, and there's this action sequence, and there's so many panels on this page to describe what's happening, and I'm just psyching myself out completely because I'm thinking too much about what I'm doing. Whereas if I just relax, I sit back, I know what I want to do, I have the sketches there, I know what I want to happen on this page, then I just sit back, relax, let my body do the work, I give myself permission to flow, I will naturally just watch it happen, right? And I noticed this, I started doing this today, I really buckled down and said, okay, I'm going to do my best to just relax, not think too much about it, and just do it. Because one of the things that I found myself getting caught up in was I would draw the quick little sketch, right? Just the stick figure dude of what I wanted to be happening. And then I'd go back in and try to draw the face perfectly with what the sketch was, even though the sketch doesn't represent what the face should look like. You know, it's hard to explain. Instead, what I should have been doing is, if I was relaxing, the process that I was working with was much like using the force of the artist. Remember how we started with all those shapes and stuff? I lay in the shape of the character, lay in the shape of that action first, and then I just start kind of chiseling away and making it look make it look the way that I want it to be. So yeah, as soon as I started doing that, it started working. As soon as I stopped trying, just trusted myself and gave myself permission to flow, it started working. So that's one of the biggest things that I always need to be asking myself. Am I relaxing while I'm working, or am I trying too hard? Am I thinking too much about how the anatomy should be in this guy, or if his head is too big, or if his shoulders are too wide? You know, if I'm thinking about this stuff too much in the beginning, then it's gonna annoy me, it's gonna tick me off, and then it's just gonna show in my work, right? The best work comes out of me when I'm just relaxing and just trusting in myself and just knowing that basically, like, the stuff that I put out, like, I have a standard, right? I have a standard for the kind of work that I put out and that I show to people. So I'm not going to release it if it's not ready. You know what I mean? So I just got to trust myself and just go for it, and then know that I'll take care of it before it goes out, right? So yeah, and again, just relax on the way there and trust in yourself. Second question that I need to start asking myself more is, am I being grateful for what I have gotten and basically what I have right now? Because I have these great dreams of, like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this big business, I'm going to make this comic, and then millions of people are going to like it, and then I'm going to send me money, and then I'm going to be rich, and then, yeah, I'm going to go get a big pool and fill it with gold coins, you know, like Scrooge McDuck, and, like, swim in it and all that stuff. And these aren't really my dreams, but, you know, dreams like that, you know, just like these giant, you know, crazy dreams for the future. And oftentimes we place that price tag on it, right? We place that price tag on it of, like, all these things we have to sacrifice to get that, and that we're not allowed to be happy until we have that giant pool filled with gold coins and just money flowing out the windows of your house. But too often we don't realize that, you know, are you being grateful for the fact that you even have a fully working body? Are you grateful for the fact that you have eyes that you can see? Are you thankful that you can actually breathe, that you have food and a roof over your head and a place to sleep? You know, these kinds of things you always need to make sure that you're being grateful for, and make sure that you are allowing yourself to be happy and excited for those things. And not to say that, you know, some people take comfort in the fact of, oh, I'm just going to be grateful for what I have. To want more than what I have is greedy, and that's evil, right? To want more money, you feel like a lot of people think that having an obsession with wanting more is greedy and bad and evil, but it's not really. A lot of people think that in order to get big or get rich, you have to steal that money from somebody else. And that's not necessarily the case. Or they feel that if you make a successful business and you become rich, that you're obsessed with money. But I would argue that the people that are obsessed with money are probably the people that don't have enough of it, right? Because they're constantly thinking about it. They're constantly thinking about how they don't have enough. They're constantly thinking, they talk about it with their family and their friends. They complain about it at work. And those are the people that are really obsessed with money, the people that don't have enough of it. So I would argue that it's not a bad goal to have the monetary goal of getting enough to support, more than support yourself, your family, your friends, and give love to everybody. Like, give it, right? You get it and then you give it, right? And I don't think it's bad to have those types of goals. But at the same time, don't feel like you're not worth anything until you've achieved an enormous amount of money. Because in the end, it really doesn't matter how much money I'm gonna make with this business. It doesn't matter how much money I'm gonna make with this business. It doesn't matter how, like, if I'm gonna be able to buy a giant mansion or if I have 10 cars in my garage. It really doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters to me. I know that in the end, what's gonna mean the biggest, what's gonna have the highest value to me is what I'm going to become on the journey of making this comic. And it's just like, during the creation process, right? In order for something to become strong, it has to undergo, you know, stress, you know, to create a blade, right? It has to be sanded down and sculpted from the original piece of metal. It has to be heated up and then cooled, and then it gets hardened, right? And you can't create, like, something of great value cannot be created without having stress and work put into it and having it gain strength. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of good things about that. And yeah, just make sure that you're being grateful for what you have, and don't be afraid to create a bigger vision for yourself and continue towards that. All right, moving on to the next question. Are you trusting in the law of increasing returns? Okay, this is another really cool law, and this law really, really, like, blew me away when I heard it, and it totally just set everything straight for me. And this law was talked about by Napoleon Hill. And he's the guy that wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, right? And that is such a cool book because, I mean, I haven't read it actually in the book. I haven't gotten that far into it. But Napoleon Hill himself talks about this law of increasing returns. Like another good way to put it in like a layman's term is karma, right? Do something nice for somebody, it comes back to you. Do something bad for somebody, that also comes back to you. And the way that the law of increasing returns basically states, the way it says it is that you cannot create something of value, or you can't do something of value for somebody for free, right? Like if you do something and you give it away for free, that comes back to you in some way, right? Whether it's spiritually, the way that you feel about yourself. I mean, that's like a given. You instantly feel great about yourself whenever you give something away for free. But also monetarily, just like luck seems to come your way. And this kind of really, really set me straight because, obviously most of you know I quit my job working at Riot full time to start doing this comic. And oftentimes I kind of have like these really kind of scary thoughts of like, oh man, did I make the right choice? And I don't know if I did this because there's so much uncertainty in terms of just like, monetary things, right? Like, am I going to be able to pay these bills? Am I going to be able to like get my own place again? Am I going to be able to do all this? And all of these things had just been stressing me out over the past weeks. Like, and then I realized it's like, dude, it's not even worth worrying about those things because you know what? I feel better about myself today than I ever have in my life. And there's no amount of money that could have possibly bought that. And the reason why I feel great about myself is because I'm following my dream. I'm doing what I really believe that I should be doing. I'm expressing myself. I'm telling a story. I'm giving it away for free. I'm doing a show. I'm teaching. I'm giving back. And I like that feeling. I like the way that makes me feel. Even if there was just 2 people that watched the show, which was the original reason why I did this, was just for 2 people to watch it and really inspire, like it would really inspire them. They'd go out and maybe change their lives or really want to pursue that artistic career, go work professionally, work there for maybe a few years, and then go start their own company, make a comic, make a movie. I don't care what it is, but I just want to inspire 2 people. Because imagine, like, my thought behind that is like, imagine if everybody in the world just inspired 2 people, right? Wouldn't that be awesome? We just have like a giant world of inspired people, and then it would just keep compounding on itself, and then it would just become greater and greater and greater, and then we would naturally have flying cars faster. We'd have all those futuristic cities that are depicted and things like Star Trek. We could get to that quicker. That would be really nice. That would be really cool. By the way, I went and saw that new Star Trek movie. It was really, really sweet. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, but just imagine what we could do with a world of just people that inspire each other, both directly and indirectly. So many people have inspired me throughout my life to want to do what I want to do. And those can be like positive, and there can be positive and negative things that inspire you, right? You can look at somebody who's just so amazing at what they do, and you'd be like, man, I want to do that. And then you look into, what's their story? How did they come up with that? What did they study? You'll basically like copy something that they've done, artistically. Be like, oh, I like this guy, how he did this. I'm just going to copy this picture and see how he did it. And then you take that information, you store it in your brain, and you're like, now I know how to do that next time. And then you kind of like add your own little twist on it, and then it becomes your style. Things like that. But yeah, I think that, yeah, just trusting in the law of increasing returns, it just gives me that sense of comfort that, you know what, it's like at the end of it all, there's 2 ways I'm going to feel about my life. One is I went for it and I wanted to make a comic and I made it, or I played it safe and I didn't take the chance and I didn't make the comic, and I didn't follow my dream. I didn't pursue my vision. And yeah, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, really. So I need to really keep reminding myself that is really why I'm here. I'm here to inspire. I'm here to teach. I'm here to do what I want to do, what makes me happy, and I'm here to make a comic, maybe make a business, and make money off of it, Maybe do all those things. But those are all secondary. Those are all secondary to just telling a story, making a thing, and giving back to you guys, right? I want to give to you guys. I think that's really, really fun. And yeah, I think that nothing but good can come from that. All right, next question. Are you staying on top of the little things? All right, so for those of you who tuned in before the show started, you may have noticed that I just kind of cleaned up my bed, right? It was like kind of like all messed up, and I looked back, I was like, ugh, that's nasty. I don't want people seeing that. So I got up there and just kind of like quickly made the bed. And I can't tell you guys how much taking care and staying on top of the little things really helps to keep a sense of clarity in your life. Because oftentimes whenever I'm feeling down, and I talked about this last week, every time I'm feeling kind of down or depressed or just kind of weird, like especially at those times where you feel like you're down for no reason, it's oftentimes because there's just a bunch of little things that have stacked on top of themselves, like 10 to 12 little tiny things. Like, oh, the room's getting a little messy, or oh, I didn't do the dishes, or I didn't email this person. Oh, this person wanted to talk to me, I didn't get back to them. Those things stick in the back of your subconscious, and then you kind of forget about them. You forget about them up, you know, like in your present moment, right? But they're still back in your subconscious, and that's why you can't really recall what's making you feel weird, but you do feel weird. And you need to trust in that, and then kind of sit down, make a little list in your awesome journal. If any of you have gone out and got one of these, you need to make a quick list of all those little things that you believe have been piling up. Then you go through them, take care of them one by one, check them off, and I guarantee you at the end of that, you will have this sense of clarity, and you're just ready to get back to life, and you have this like zest, and you're just ready to go, right? So that's really cool. All right, and then the last question that I've thought of for right now is, am I trusting my gut? Am I trusting my gut? And this goes back to using the force of the artist and giving yourself permission to flow. This is all stuff that happens when you don't think about it, right? You're trusting in your own skill. You're trusting your gut. Those gut feelings come from some sort of, I don't know where the heck they come from, but they are inspired from a place that is beyond you. It is literally like the gods of Idea Land shooting lightning bolts into your ears, and you can only do it when you just like set everything down, you're relaxed, because when you're trying, you're just like covering your ears and like nothing can go in, right? None of the ideas and inspiration can go into your head. But when you're relaxed, you're just working and you just get those ideas. You're just like those hunches, those gut feelings. And you're just like, oh no, I know exactly what this needs. Or dang, like I don't know where that came from, but this is perfect, right? And oftentimes, like when I'm drawing, it's like, I've heard some people compare it to something called happy accidents, right? I'll be sketching something, and then I'll just like put in this little detail, or this little like flick of the wrist, right? That just like makes this emotion, like say I'm drawing like a facial expression, it just makes this emotion like all the more believable. Or this the flow in the character's body language, it just becomes so much more believable from just like these little gut instincts would be like that, right? And I can't explain it too much because I don't know exactly where it comes from. All I know is that it works only when you sort of surrender yourself to it. You surrender your mind and your mental thinking to that higher power, whatever it is, the Idea Land gods, to shoot the lightning bolts in there. And that makes me so happy. So yeah, and it's not just in art either. It's like, you ever had that feeling like, okay, what's a good thing? I'm like fixing my hair because it's always like hot in here. This is getting to like summer, and I'm seriously contemplating cutting my hair because it gets so hot that I literally, like, my hair is so thick it's like a helmet, and it just insulates all of the heat that's supposed to be escaping my scalp. It just puts it, like, keeps it right here, so I like start sweating and it's kind of nasty. So yeah, if that keeps up, I'm probably just gonna go bald. I'm just gonna go ahead and shave my head completely bald, and I'll look like a cholo. But Cholo Thursdays, Cholo Thoughtful Thursdays. All right. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, trusting your gut. Am I trusting my gut? Because these last few weeks, I have not been trusting my gut at all. I've been thinking way too much about these layouts. I've been thinking way too much about, oh, does this character look okay? Oftentimes it's like, oh, does this character's face look like it should, or is this head too big, or is the anatomy correct here, or is the scale of this character looking proper to the other ones, and all these little things that normally I would take care of anyway because, like I said, I know the quality of work that needs to go out. And when I cross that bridge, when I come to that bridge, I will cross it. But if I try to cross that bridge before I naturally come to it, it's going to throw off the whole pattern. I really think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. It's crossing your bridges before you come to them naturally will naturally throw off your mind. And so I think that's a good reason to, again, stop thinking so much when you're doing things creatively, and then cross those bridges when you come to them. All right, so let's see. The next thing I want to talk about, so those are the 5 questions I like to talk to myself, or I like to ask myself whenever I'm feeling kind of weird. And I'll just run through those one more time in case you want to write them down in your journal. 1, are you relaxing while you work? 2, are you being grateful for what you already have and what you've done to get to where you are, right? Are you being grateful? Are you thinking about the positive things, like all of the awesome things that have happened to put you where you currently are, right? Be positive. Number 3, Are you trusting in the law of increasing returns? The law stating that as you do for others, as you give things of value for free or whatever, like it doesn't matter. If you just give it, it will come back to you, right? And that can be positive or negative. So make sure you're giving away good things. Don't be trying to take advantage of people, because you will not. You might think you're getting away with it, but you're not. So, law of increasing returns. Number 4, are you staying on top of all the little things? Simply said, make a list of all those little things whenever you're feeling down for no reason. And number 5, are you trusting your gut? Again, it's like, get out of your own way and let yourself be amazing. That's what I really think it boils down to. What if you allowed yourself to just be who you were supposed to be? What if you got out of your own way and let yourself just naturally follow your instinct, right? Use the force of the artist. Use the force. Use your soul. Let your soul show itself, right? Because as you're using your mind, it naturally just boxes everything in. You think all logically and you don't let yourself flow, it will just come out not natural and it just won't look good, speaking in art terms. But even like in life, I think a lot of things in life can be related to this type of thing, and trusting in your gut. I cannot recall any time where I have trusted my gut on something and it ended up being well, it doesn't always turn out amazing, right? But even if something comes out that's a little bit negative, I immediately find the hidden jewel that's within that failure, right? The seed of the equivalent success, right? That's what they always say. With every failure, there's a seed of an equivalent success. So don't get down when you feel that you failed at something, because it's actually a great opportunity in disguise. All right, moving on. All right, so I want to move into this next thing that I wrote down. This was something that I heard recently on a YouTube video that I was listening to by a guy named Steve Chandler. This guy's really awesome. He's got like a really low voice. He kind of talks like Garfield. He kind of has like a monotone, low voice, but originally I thought he sounded kind of boring, but after listening to the whole thing, I was like, dang, this guy is really, really smart. So he says something in his little online thing about running towards your fear, right? Whenever you have a lot of uncertainty about something, like you're afraid of, like for me, a big thing was taxes, right? This is a great example. By the way, sorry, I just went and had some Thai food with my little brothers, and yeah, that's why I just burped. Sorry. How professional. A professional burp, yes. All right, but he talks about running towards your fear. And a good example of this is me and taxes, right? Tax season came along not too long ago, right? And I was basically I knew I was gonna owe a lot because I was working at Riot, and I claimed a high number on my W-4 or whatever, basically so that way the government would take out less taxes, right? But I would owe more later, okay? And so I knew I was going to owe some. So anyway, I kind of had the feeling that it was probably going to be about $1,500 that I was going to owe, and it ended up being about that much. But the problem is that I didn't have $1,500 actually saved up at that point, because it was like right at the end of the savings that I had saved up from Riot to basically quit the job and start the comic. And so naturally I was like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to send the check now, right? And it's all this like fear and kind of what's the word? Uncertainty kind of revolving around that. But rather than running away from it, kind of ignoring it, some people do this. Some people actually like, oh, I can't pay those taxes, so I'm just going to ignore them, right? They run away from their fear. They ignore it. They hope it's just going to disappear. But it usually doesn't. It usually doesn't. I talked to my tax guy, and I was like, literally, I went in there. I was like, look, I don't have the money to pay this right now, but like, just give me my options, right? It's like, just give me the information. And that's basically running towards your fear. I'm afraid this might happen. I'm just going to face it head on and just deal with it, right? Just figure out how much I owe. I think I might owe this much, but I might not. I ended up owing about $1,400, which is about my estimate, okay? So I come to that, right? I come to the conclusion that I'm presented with this information that I owe this money. I don't have it right now. So I talked to my tax guy, and we talked about the options. And he basically told me, he's like, yeah, you could do some sort of payment plan, but if you do that, like, they're already going to throw the interest on top of it, basically as if they would have caught you anyway, right? So at least that's the way he put it to me. I don't know anything about taxes, but this is kind of how he put it to me. So I was like, okay, well then I got to figure out a way to get that money. So again, I didn't worry too much about it, and then the solution came to me basically a couple days later. I was like, well, hey, I'm always going into the bank. They're always talking to me about how my credit is really good and I could afford to get a personal line of credit, which is as good as cash, right? So I go into the bank and I talk to them about it, and they, sure enough, they do the credit report thing, or they check my credit, and they're like, yeah, you have good credit. I actually, I've not been too smart with my credit over the past years, but luckily I have been always making my payments. I've never been late on them, and I've never really just skipped them, right? So I have good credit. So I was able to get a loan for like $15,000, but it's a line of credit, so you only get charged on the amount that you take out, right? So I took out about $1,500 and sent it off, and that was basically the solution. But I want to stress to you guys like how amazing I felt after I just went in and I took care of it, right? I found the solution, and instead of worrying about it, thinking about, oh man, oh, I'm gonna get sharked by the IRS, they're gonna come pick me up and throw me, they're gonna put a bag over my head and throw me into a white, windowless van and haul me off into like some desert and leave me there to die. Instead of worrying about all these crazy things that would normally be going on in my head, I ran toward my fear. I figured out exactly what the problem was. I got all the information that I needed, and then I just kind of relaxed on it, and just the solution came to me, right? The solution came to me. And say the thing with the bank wouldn't have worked out. I would have found another way. I would have found another way to make that money if I needed to. I would have borrowed it from somebody, just like the solution. There's tons of solutions, right? But ideally, I wanted to get a solution that I could take care of, that I could control. So anyway, yeah, run towards your fear, because oftentimes on the other side of it, there's a great chance for growth, and there's a great chance for it's usually not as bad as you think it is, especially once you figure out the solution. But if you run from it and you don't take the time, you don't give it the time that it needs, it will come back to you. It will come back to you, and it will be even worse. It will be even worse, to the point where you can push it off only for so long, and then there will be a point where that problem will demand your attention. So I think it's a good idea to not run from your fear anymore. All right. Next question. We've been going for about 30 minutes. I'm probably going to talk about a couple more things, and then I'm going to open the chat to questions. You guys can ask me anything you want. All right. Let's see. The next thing I want to talk about is, okay. So something I wrote down today was, don't forget the importance of setting goals and then creating the plans to get you there. Okay. So this is another thing that's been kind of falling by the wayside ever so slowly over the past weeks. I used to put tons of goals in this thing, right? And I'm still kind of doing it on and off, right? But sure enough, as you get lazy with things, you start to stop doing, as you stop doing the things you used to do when you were feeling great, you'll naturally start to feel kind of weird, right? And I used to write down, I was constantly writing in this journal about, oh, here's how my day went, or I had this interesting insight, or I had this great idea for the business. And I stopped doing those things. I stopped making as many goals, as many checklists, and naturally I started to feel weird. I started to not feel as happy as I did before. And of course, when you look at it logically like that, it's like, well, of course you're not feeling as happy as you were before. You're not doing the same things as you were doing before. So again, that's the important thing, is getting back to that. Don't forget the importance of developing those big dreams, but then you also have to set the plans, create the plans that's going to get you there. And creating the plans is actually hard work. That's why a lot of people don't do it. A lot of people just let it slide, because making plans is plain hard work. It really is. But it's also very, very inspiring. And there's a lot of energy that comes from setting a plan in motion, right? Figuring it out. Like, say, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to create an animated thing for this comic that I'm making, possibly, in the future. I want to make some sort of animation. And, okay, but what is the plan that's going to get me there? Because if I just sit around and be like, oh, yeah, I want to make this animation thing, and, one day it'll work. One day it'll happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but one day it'll happen. If you just leave it like that, chances are it could easily just kind of fall by the wayside, and you're going to forget you ever had that thought. But if you really want it, you really, really want to see something through, you put down the plan, and then you just work it out, right? And then each day, or just incrementally over time, you'll notice, oh my gosh, I'm getting closer to this. I'm getting closer to the time when it's going to happen, right? I can see it happening before my eyes. And you keep it in your mind, and somehow, some way, it just happens to get you there. You meet the right person. you find the right tutorial online that teaches you how to do something. You're inspired, or you just get the idea from Idea Land, right? Just get shot into your ears, and then you're like, yes, brilliant! And then you go on to do amazing things. So, don't forget the importance of setting goals and then creating the plans to get you there. But also, I wanted to counter this same thing because everything's about balance, right? Creating those plans and thinking about the future is all good, right? But you can also get addicted to thinking about the future. I think that there's a certain balance that needs to be kept when you're thinking about the future. Mainly, the balance between thinking about the future, right, and what you want to get, but also living in the present day and using today for all that it's meant to be, right? Constant thing that I always hear, right, but it just seems like it carries so much weight. It almost seems kind of cheesy, but there's this quote that says, "Every day is a new life to a wise man." And that's so interesting to me. And I was like, man, I've been wasting a lot of lifetimes just these last few days because I'm staying up late and I'm waking up late, and it's just like I don't get that much work done throughout the day as much as I want to. And you know, but I think it is also very inspiring to think about it that way. It's like just focus on today, right? Don't another great quote that I've heard is like the weight of today, or the weight of tomorrow placed upon the weight of today will make any man stumble, or basically make any man fall to the floor, right? Because you can't carry both the weight of tomorrow and weight of today. Focus on what you're going to do, you know, in the coming days, in the coming months, and for the rest of your life. But there's nothing quite like staying focused on the present day and what you can do now, right? Not making sure that you're not just daydreaming about what's going to happen, or worrying, even worse, which is what a lot of people do. Like 99% of the entire world is totally just fixated and focused on the worries of the future. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen here? And and again, I'm guilty of this too. I was doing this over the past few days, right? I was having these terrible visions of like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm so worried about what's going to happen like a month from now, a week from now. I don't know what's going to happen. But you know what? There's nothing that I can do. Well, there's only so much I can do to alter that, right? What I have to do to take care of those things in the future is focus on what I can do today, right? Focus on everything that has to do with me. Stop trying to get everybody else to do what I want them to do, and instead really look at me, because the key to your better future is yourself. It's not this guy over here. It's not this amount of money. It's not this car. It's not this house. It's you, right? So you have to make sure that you are taking advantage of that, right? Take advantage of your day and make it the day that you want it to be, and focus on everything that you can be doing right now and not waiting on somebody else to give you permission to do it, right? All right. Woo! Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and open up the question catapults. Question catapults. I was about to say question column because it's like a chat column. Question column catapults. So if you would like to ask me anything, please do so as I sweat the day away. And that is oh so attractive. And while we do that, I'm going to go ahead and start winding down with some closing thoughts. And that is something that I wrote down here was, it's all about the first step and the last step. I really think that the biggest parts of any project, the biggest parts of anything that you want to do with your life, all revolves around the first step and the last step. And the first step, I think, really pertains to like these giant things, right? Like this idea that I wanted to make a company and make a comic. The first step of that was realizing that I wanted to do this full-time, and I wanted to quit my full-time job, be able to go back home and work from home on contract when I need to and when I want to, and just have that freedom, right? I wanted that freedom, and I took that first step to get there. And ever since I took that first step, there was no going back. I couldn't even go back if I wanted to. I mean, when I left on great terms with Riot, and they told me that, you know, if I ever wanted to come back, I could. I think that's really, really sweet and awesome that they would do something like, or say something like that. But I knew inside that I didn't want that to happen, right? I didn't want to go back because I just wanted to see this thing through. And then the last step really comes into play when you're working on small things, right? Like, say, a layout of one page that I have to work on today. There's nothing that's more, there's nothing that's like more damaging to your self-esteem and like your motivation than not finishing things, right? lot of people think that fatigue comes from working too much, but I think fatigue really comes from not finishing your work. Not finishing something is just so damaging to your mind, right? And I'm not talking about like, hey, I got to finish this page, right? But set realistic goals, right? Figure out what you're capable of and start setting realistic goals. That way, if your goal is to finish half a page, at least you can finish that goal. But too often, I noticed this, like the goals that I have been writing down, I haven't been getting to them. And I'm starting to fall into this thing of, oh man, I'm not accomplishing my goals anymore. I'm not doing the things that I write down. And that's a pretty bad thing to have happen. And it happens so slowly and so subtly that you can't catch it. You cannot catch it from day to day to day until you realize that something's wrong, you're kind of down, you're kind of depressed, and then you really look back and be like, whoa, look at, then you can see the giant gap in between. This is what I was doing 2 months ago, and this is what I'm doing now. And then it makes complete sense why you're not feeling the way you did 2 months ago. And this is a natural thing. It's like, it's that constant battle, right? You have to constantly work for that positive, happy lifestyle. And as soon as you get lazy or get lax with it, you'll naturally start to go back down. Start to go back down to that comfort level, right? Because you get lazy and you're like, oh, I don't really have to do that, you know? It's just a waste of time. I'm just going to do this thing. And you naturally just so subtly slip back into it. So it's a constant like fight for territory, right? You got to be on your guard at all time. You got to make sure you're taking, basically look at the results of your week. Look at the results of what you've done over the past couple months and be like, am I still doing these things? Am I improving on these things? Am I slipping back into something that's going to be negative in the future? Is this something that I have to basically nip in the bud right now and stop? So yeah, and that's a big thing. It's so much about, you know, taking that first step and finishing your goals and taking the last step. But yeah, definitely. All right, questions coming in. John is asking, Keenan, I always end up cleaning my room and doing the small stuff during Thoughtful Thursdays. Yes, John. John got with the program. Now I know, I can see you. I can see right there, right behind your room. That is a messy room. Go clean that up. Clean that crap up and do the dishes. It'll make people happy. All right. Helgen Warfare is asking a good question. Do you ever have days that look like you're just out of your game, like you can't seem to draw right? Yes, I definitely have days like this. Namely, yesterday. This is exactly what was happening to me yesterday. I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I was sitting there making this comic page. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. It's like, this page sucks. It's like, this isn't coming out right. It's like, I've done this before. Why can't I do it now, right? And I just get into this thought pattern of thinking too much, right? Don't focus on what you've already done. Just take it for what it is and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to do this right here. And then if it doesn't turn out right, I'll fix it, right? Cross that bridge when you come to it. Don't get so obsessed with, like, just trying to fix everything and make it look all perfect at the beginning. Really just allow yourself, like if you feel that you can't draw during that day, it's probably because you're thinking way too much about the fact that you can't draw, right? You can't draw the thing and you're trying too hard mentally to make it happen. So I would advise you in days like that to do something that's much more free, much more loose. Like you can open up just open up a new document and just start sketching weird shapes, like scribble if you want to, and then just start picking out characters, just draw random faces. Draw whatever comes to your mind, right? It's not so much an issue of whatever you're drawing needs to look good, but you're getting your mind into a sense of flow, right? You're getting your mind into a sense of, okay, just thought of this, draw it. Thought of this, draw it. Thought of this shape, draw on that. Okay, I can make it into this thing. And then see if after you do an exercise like that, if you can go back to the document you're working on and see if your mind is a little bit more clear and focus on doing things naturally. I should actually do a tutorial Tuesday on something like that, because that's something that I kind of battle with quite a bit, like those days where I just feel like I can't get it right. And yeah, I think that would be a really good thing. I'm going to write that down. And I kind of had done things like that with free drawing, but I think that this kind of goes a little bit further into like a little bit of that mental game, and I really like that. So thank you for that question, Helgen. Awesome question as usual. All right, last question coming in from Noish78. Asking, or wait. Oh no, she's just confirming what Helgen said. Saying, don't feel alone in that. I think that happens to all artists. And it really does. It really does, Helgen. You don't feel like there's something wrong with you because it's a natural thing. It happens to everybody. It even happens to me on a constant basis, right? It was happening to me yesterday. It happens, you know, just as long as you're not, as soon as you stop fighting for that territory, right? As soon as you start thinking too much, you'll defeat yourself. Your mind will defeat your creative efforts. So just be careful with that stuff. Alrighty, peoples! We're going to end day 53 of the KNKL live stream. Thank you guys once again for joining me live on Ustream. Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. If you're on YouTube, my name is Kienan Lafferty. I'll see you guys on Monday. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.